Hello Zimbabwe and a very good evening to you. My name is Farai Mwakutuya and this is My Future. Now, on the last edition of the program, we had the Honorable Minister of Primary and Secondary Education. We didn't get to finish and get through all the issues that the young people of Zimbabwe wanted to ask. And so tonight we have him back as we continue that discussion. Honorable Dokora, we continue our discussion today. Let me hand over very quickly to Kimberly Guineo.
I would first like to commend your ministry for allowing colleges and such like institutions to register. It ensures that many children are able to be educated. However, my question is on it's legislatory that children should have a balance between cultural activities, sports, as well as academics. Most of these colleges are located in the CBD, especially in Harare, and they're in flawed buildings which don't have sporting facilities. Does the Ministry of Education ensure in any way that these children do have a balance between school hours as well as sport time?
I think the registration condition will certainly be talking to, do you have as an institution some relationship with the club which has access to sporting field? Because certainly it's not our understanding of what education is to be training the mind and excluding the body. They are meant to, in fact, that was one of the conditions that led some of them to be closed in the first place, until they produced some relationship that they had access to sporting fields. And of course, community halls, if they don't have a hall of their own, so that kids can participate in cultural activities.
The Junior Minister of Education.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I'd like to get clarification on the issue of condoms. I understand that most people suggest that condoms should be issued out to school children or to schools. What is your say to that, sir?
I would want to defer to yourselves to tell me what you think I should say. Because I did not have this opportunity like we have now, it would be interesting to hear from you. Because what I have said, I'm sure you're familiar. Yeah? We have said that there is a moral issue on this matter. There is also a larger issue of a value system. I don't know what nationality is doing that, and then we say to ourselves, we get into their shoes and become themselves. If we are still Zimbabweans, what are we saying? Who has the responsibility to instill moral values in their children? Is it the school? Is it the parent? If we think it is the parent, then what are the obligations of the parent to their child? Let us say, for argument's sake, condoms must be placed in schools. So I would want to understand who has the responsibility to purchase them as an item on the budget, bring them into the school premises. Do we give the class teacher so they can hand over to you as the junior minister? Do we give the school head? I have spoken to some parents who have said to me, they should be put in the toilet so that nobody has responsibility for them. Is this what we want? So I want to hear from you. Do you want condoms in schools?
Perhaps putting them on the spot might not get the actual, you might get the true answers when we are off air, Honorable Minister. But I think that that whole issue of condoms in schools raises a bigger question on sex education. Is this, I mean, we know that there is talk of a new curriculum being developed. Is sex education part of that curriculum? At what stage is it being done? And again, in line with the question you first asked, whose responsibility is it, the school or the parent? My view is that, look, we both have a role to parent a child because children spend most of their time at school and perhaps not as much at home.
Let me correct another misconception, and I'm glad you, you use that term, sex education. we deal in the school system with matters of sexuality and health education. And that gives a different take to that matter. We start in grade 4 when kids are introduced to matters that relate to human beings as having those characteristics that predispose them to sexuality and health. And the cycle of the syllabus obviously complicates, becomes heavier as we go through the system, right through to A level. So it's not as if there is no awareness, no teaching that is taking place in the school system. There is. This is why alertness among young people is of the order of an empowerment program. They must know who touches them where, how they are being related to, and what causes danger to them. If you take that in a holistic fashion, it's a wholesome program that's meant to enable the young person to be making the correct choices, decisions that are healthy, that promote the kind of future they are looking for. The new curriculum does not remove this responsibility from the education system. If anything, at the current proposals that we have of the ministry's organogram, the restructuring we are proposing, we actually want a health educator located in every school, so that we don't use every teacher to undertake this task. We now have a specialized person from the health sector who will be undertaking this role, but assisted by the teachers, of course, because there are many young people in any given school. So I think this is a wholesome program that's underway.
Let me stop you there, Honourable Minister, only because we need to take a short break now. It's My Future. We're speaking to the Honourable Minister of Primary and Secondary Education. Already many topical issues have been discussed. More on the way. My Future returns shortly. Well, we thank you for staying with us. My Future now continues. The Honourable Minister of Primary and Secondary Education is our guest in the studio tonight. Love Mota Fumanai, please go ahead.
My question is, Honourable Minister, my question is on the vacation schools. Where was it banned in schools?
Vacation school is associated with examination classes. Grade 7, Form 4, and Form 6. And the vacation school occurs once a year in the August holidays. And there are stipulated number of days for vacation school, 10 to 12 days. The reason for restricting those days to 10 to 12 is because we have an understanding of the educational value of a holiday for scholars. To get a kid in school in January and run with them without a break to the examination in November is a recipe for a disastrous learning career. You are literally saying to me, remove the 3 months of holiday in a year. We are just machines ready to roll and learn all the time. No, that's not education. It's something else, but don't call it education. Parents must relate to their children, and we provide a full month for it. Quality time. You know, I'm always excited when I see in the media, for instance, a young person has their blood drawn from their arm by some misguided teacher. And the person who notices that the child has a difficulty, it's not the mother or the father of the child. It's the grandmother out in the rural area who receives this child for a holiday and says, "Endono vura mombe mwana, mzukuru wangu." And she notices, you seem to have a pain in that hand of yours. What happened? But this child has come from the parents in town who were too busy trying to make money, trying to do things for their child. And it's only the grandmother who has spared quality time to be able to say, there's a problem here. And then the system started to look for the source of the problem, traced back to the school, and then apprehending the culprit. So when I talk about quality time, that's what I mean. And even you as young people, don't avoid your parents. They should be your first line of defense against any invasion of your integrity. They are your best friends. So, vacation school, yes, but for examination classes. The rest of the time, you need to develop this deepening relationship in the family context.
What of cases where parents feel that, look, okay, my child is perhaps falling behind or not at a level where I think they will be able to do well in these exams, which are critical for determining their future. And they say, look, I'm willing, or we are willing to pay their teacher to give them some additional lessons.
Let me underscore
voluntarily.
This. Let me underscore this. It's not about ability to pay. Otherwise, you would have been bought by the Americans, wouldn't you? Why didn't you go? It's not about money. It's about a value system, inculcating a value that says, my child requires my time. They are not machines. They are human beings who must be, in some familial relationship with their guardians and their parents. Ability to pay can mislead parents into thinking, oh, well, if I can pay my way, it's okay. Go there. I've paid him. You teach him. Go there. I've paid. And you've read stories about what then happens. We don't want to risk that. The teachers, and I have over 3,000 teachers now on the staff development program. Teachers are trained to teach multiple levels of competence in the one class. And these young people have experience of that. One group is doing this, another group is doing that, and so on. We shouldn't assume our teachers are so dull that they can't manage to teach different levels of understanding in the same class.
Let's open up the discussion to the rest of the panel. We've got students from all over the country. We've got a young lady at the back there who will go ahead.
With regards to the regulations that you set, how far do you then implement them on private schools? Like we have for example, you say that we need students are allowed to bring their phones to school, and then we get to a private school where our principal would say something like, that doesn't concern us, or that was something set for government schools, or the likes of that. How far do you then stretch that to private schools so they have a clear understanding on it?
All schools that are registered under my ministry respond to the same ministry. And remember, when we spoke about smartphones, it was in relation to ICTs, where they call them laptop, tablets, iPads, and so on. That's the whole array of ICT tools. And we also said, which is a matter that has not been emphasized by our media, part of it, and I understand they have no appreciation of this aspect of it, that every school has regulations. It's how you arrive at those regulations. Do you take in the parent community's contribution? Or is it a regulation that's simply designed by the school development committee or the board of governors in the case of the non-government schools? But certainly we expect that every school has rules and regulations about when to deploy what tools in the process of education. It's not a wholesale issue that you have a cell phone here, you have a cell phone here, you have a cell phone there. Although I had a beautiful experience at Chinoy High School when I went there to engage with young people from Form 1 to Form 6 and their teachers as part of the curriculum review process. And we sat there and discussed all manner of things, including the question of cell phones. And the young people there were saying, the head doesn't want us to have cell phones here, but we have more than one. So when we enter the gate, we actually offer to hand over the cell phones. So you can see what you have been doing to the adults.
My Future takes a break. Do stay with us. Well, thank you for staying with us on My Future. My name is Farai Mwakutuya, and joining us in the studio tonight is Honorable Lazarus Dokora, the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, and he's speaking to a panel of young people from different parts of Zimbabwe. I believe there is a question. A gentleman at the corner there has got a question, and we'll allow him to go ahead.
My question pertains to vocational education. It's basic knowledge that not all of us are gifted intellectually. Some people are very skilled footballers, some people are very skilled singers, and they don't have much of a chance in the formal education system as it is. What is the government doing in terms of increasing the availability of vocational education? Because we see countries like America, they have contribution, a great percentage of contribution to the GDP from the arts sector. We can't do that because most of our arts are not very refined.
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure about your assessment of our arts sector. I think we should look forward to the new curriculum, because part of the effort that we have invested in consulting on the new curriculum, those very things have come through. We need more sport, more physical education, more arts, and even more music, embracing even traditional instruments such as the mbira. You know, the xylophone is born in this region, but it has been made popular elsewhere. We have to embrace that and bring those values back into the education system. When you listen to artists, and I do listen quite a lot to artists, and I'm keen to pick a word to say, does any one of them say, if it wasn't my experience at such a school, I would not be a singer today? None says that. We have to correct it. And we'll start with your generation. So music, physical arts, acrobatics, all those areas of learning, and sport, all those are going to be beginning in ECD at 4 years. It's an exciting journey.
Now that you mentioned this curriculum, we know you've made reference to the fact that it is being reviewed. Could you tell us how far you've gone with that review process? When can we expect this new curriculum, and what is it geared towards?
Well, already you have seen the bias that it will carry, which is really to say over 800,000 people up and down the country, almost 900,000, responded at their local school, at the town hall, at the provincial centers, and so on. And the persistent messages lead to the kind of inclusions that he makes reference to. And by the way, I don't subscribe to the notion that there are people who are intellectually incapable. There are different balances that we must strike. You may have more extensive abilities in one branch of learning than another. but you're still the same person. You can be a very good athlete in a discipline of physical arts and be a very good mathematician at the same time. So we must provide that balanced diet in the new curriculum.
You know, we have to take one final question because I think this is a critical issue that is affecting a lot of young girls, particularly in Zimbabwe here. Let me ask the young lady to please go ahead with the question.
Mm-hmm. There are children out there who actually get pregnant. What happens to those children there who just drop out of school? Because we see that they are full of shame and they can't take it any longer because other children actually laugh at them instead of helping them. So what exactly or what measures is the Ministry of Education taking on such issues?
Well, thank you for the question. I thought you were going to make a further comment to say, what are you doing as young people to help each other? You know?
Are you
in
not
terms of the regulations, a child who becomes pregnant, they can be excluded for the period that they have to give life to the unborn child. And once they are done with that task, they can reconnect with the education system. And there are two avenues. You can reconnect with your former school or another school, or you can reconnect via the non-formal education route, which I have described to you. We've now revamped. It's a matter of saying, are they comfortable going back to the same school, or are they comfortable going to an alternative school, or they are comfortable pursuing their education through the non-formal route. The provisions are there.
Honourable Minister, you have made quite a bit of reference in both this program and the previous one, where you are saying, you know, you are sort of saying as children, what are you doing? And we want to hear from you. And are you not putting too much of a burden or responsibility on these children? Because they are children after all. It is their nature that they will make fun of someone, or whether, you know, it is good or not, they do that. So where is the ministry or the school system coming in here to guide them and ensure that they don't do that?
Well, I don't think you should underrate their capacities as human beings. Mm-hmm. They will express an opinion in a matter that you may have hesitation on. And if they get to a point where they become pregnant, they probably have seen things that you haven't seen. So, to that extent, we expect that the school environment itself must be promotive of the things that ensure that kids don't fall into those kinds of traps. And indeed, there are clubbing activities in the schools, or we expect that there are clubbing activities in the schools, whether it's scripture union, whether it's chess, whether it's you name it, to enable kids to expend their very energetic intentions on matters that are fruitful and productive. So it's not expecting too much of them, because as they club, as they engage in those activities, they are also doing peer education. And peer education has the beauty that it's not doubted. Mm-hmm. They don't doubt each other. They might doubt you as an adult, but among themselves,
Honourable Minister, I must thank you for being a fantastic guest. Thank you for coming through and spending time with these young people, and also to this fantastic panel as well. This does it for My Future. My name is Farai Mwakutuya. Be sure to join us again for another edition of this program as we help to create and shape a brighter future for Zimbabwe.